In this week's programme, we look at Rover's new 800, their great white hope for the future. And there's a behind-the-scenes look at an Anglo-Japanese assault on the RAC rally. With sincere apologies to those of you who, like myself, have to buy your own car, I'd like to welcome you to the most diverse company car park you're likely to find anywhere in the world. What we have here is just about every single car that competes for the attention of the thrusting young executive stroke family man. Now everybody knows that if you run a company car, you pay more income tax. And most people believe that it's the size of your engine that determines the size of your tax bill, and so it is. But what not a lot of people realise is that if you spend more than £19,250 on your company car, it may as well have a 2,000 million cc engine, because your tax bill goes from being scandalous to being astronomical. No surprises then that all these cars, you might fairly call it the tax pack, cost £19,249.99. Now it's an incredibly cutthroat arena this, but it's going to get even more cutthroat because one of the big players, Rover, is out for blood. I have a sneaking suspicion that the old Rover 800 only held its head above water because it was made in Britain. Yes, I know it was designed jointly with Honda, but it had a British body, and the 2-litre models at least used British engines. It could therefore be considered a patriotic buy. If the old Rover 800 had been as good as the British sales figures would have us believe, then how come the French and the Germans, and the Americans, weren't forming orderly queues to buy one? Not to put too fine a point on it, they were staying away in droves. This, however, is the new 800. Well, sort of new. Huge chunks of the old car remain in place, and by huge I mean the doors, the floor, the roof, and the 2.7-litre V6 engine. So what, you might ask, has been changed? Well, it has a slightly reworked interior, a new nose, and on the saloon at least, a new rear end. The extraordinary thing is that although the changes are quite small, this neither looks nor feels anything like the one that went before. Now the first thing I've got to talk about is this grille. There are those who say that it makes the 800 look like a Jaguar, and it's therefore a good thing. But equally there are those who argue that the last time Rover put a big chrome grille on the front of a car, it was the Vanden Plas Allegro, and it's therefore a bad thing. Rather less contentious are the engines. Now, as I said before, the V6 stays the same, but there's a new 2-litre. Now, even though it's got a catalytic converter as standard, it's still more powerful than the old one. Now, I can't work out for the life of me why anyone would want to see it, but Top Gear tradition does dictate that we get the bonnet up. So there you go, one engine. Fascinating. Rather more interesting is this new rear end. Now, they've raised the rump to give the car a nice sleek profile, but as a side effect, of course, you get a good big boot. But you don't want to see in there, do you? I mean, let's face it, a boot is a boot is a boot. As far as the interior is concerned, it's a case of meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Not particularly spacious, but then again, the car isn't particularly big. But there are some changes. I've got a new steering wheel, which actually looks like a large grey buttock. I'm told it's safer to have a big area like that in the event of an accident. Better switches and more wood, so it's even more stylish than ever before. I'll tell you something else as well. These seats are unbelievably comfortable. Driving the new 800 shows that Rover really can mix it with the big boys when it comes to ride and handling. Even though the original Honda-designed suspension is still used, tweaks by Rover's boffins have transformed the 800 into a car that's entertaining if you're feeling enthusiastic, yet safe and comfortable if you're not. This, by the way, was filmed at the Bruntingthorpe test track, so don't for heaven's sake try it on your way to the shops. Now, we're always banging on about worthy things on Top Gear, so it's good to see that Rover has been responsible with its choice of equipment for this SI model. You might imagine that costing £19,250, the interior would be stuffed full of toys. But instead of air conditioning, I've got anti-lock brakes. Instead of electric seats, I've got a burglar alarm. It all makes sense. So the new Rover 800 is a whole lot better than the one that went before. But that's just not good enough, because if it's going to succeed, it's got to be better than all that lot too. So how does it get on? Well, it doesn't feel quite as solid as an Audi or a Saab, and it isn't quite as well made as a Mercedes, but then again, what is? In addition, it doesn't offer quite the same perceived value as a Vauxhall or a Ford, and nor does it have the charm or the brio or the sheer good looks of an Alfa Romeo 164. However, like the BMW, the Rover is a fine all-rounder, not brilliant in one area, but very good in all of them.
There's a dawn of the dark. Here I am.
The trouble is that it doesn't tickle your erogenous zones. It isn't what you'd call exciting. But if the truth be told, none of these cars are, except one. If you want a car that keeps the taxman at bay, a car that's practical, and a car that's fun to drive, you only have one choice. The Alfa Romeo 164 Twin Spark. As far as the Rover 800's concerned, I liked its very British interior. It certainly goes well, and the equipment provided as standard is well chosen. Things I didn't like were few and far between. There's that dubious grille. It's not a very big car, and, well, that's about it.